first, and then we'll go live. On Facebook, this will just take me a minute. On Facebook, here we go. And we're just on to the last step before we go live in the group. And it's just filtering now. All right, let's go live. Hello, everyone. We should be live now. So I'm just, obviously I've got my screen set up with the spreadsheet. So please do let me know, comment away and let us know that you can see us and you can hear us and all those things. And we will answer questions as we go, obviously. So please do let us know that you can see us and you can hear us so that we can start going for you. Just bear with me. I'm just making sure that we're live and everybody can see us.
I can see it on the Facebook group, Kelly, you're live and I've got your image showing up.
Fantastic. All right. So we will begin this with as I promised, we have Matthew Addison from ICB. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us through these trying times in Australia at the moment. And Troy, who is joining us from Croatia. So thank you, Troy, for joining us. I know it's only 8 a.m. there. It's a afternoon here, but I hope you enjoy your coffee while we kind of walk through all this. Okay, so Jobkeeper 2.0, obviously we're seeing a lot of information coming at us at the moment. So I've created this spreadsheet where it brings everything in for you. So we've got the Jobkeeper overview, partnerships, companies, trusts, sole traders, key dates, alternative tests, which we'll go through probably in a little bit of depth as well. We've got not-for-profit, Fair Work changes and childcare centres on there as well, which obviously have changed to a different format. They're no longer on Jobkeeper. So from the 28th of September is when we need to be able to demonstrate either the basic test or the alternate test. That's when the Jobkeeper 1.0 finishes, Jobkeeper 2.0 begins. This is where we need to also change the tiers, the eligibility, and who actually qualifies for the next run, which is 28th of September to the 3rd of January. And then extension 2 will come in January. So this has all the details in there for you. So you've got the basic test, which is basically your GST turnover based on your BAS, whether it's cash or accrual. And it's for the September quarter 2020 versus September quarter 2019. And you have to have a 30% drop there for majority of businesses. Troy, what is it for NFPs? Is it 10 or 15%?
My understanding is still the 15% like it was the last time.
Okay.
So
beautiful. That's all in here anyway.
Numbers about the same. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. All
15% for non-for-profits and 50% for the large.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. So that's for extension 1. And extension 2 will be the same, but it'll be December quarter 2019 versus December quarter 2020. Okay. The rates will change. So tier 1, if they're over the 80 hours, it's the $1,200 per fortnight before tax. If they are under the 80 hours a month, then they're on $750 per fortnight. Okay, so it's $1,200 per fortnight, $750 per fortnight. So it drops significantly for those that are not working 20 hours a week. And then you've got the rates for the second extension, which again drop to $1,000 per fortnight and $650 per fortnight. Okay, and here's where the rate applies to the 80%, the 80 hours over the month for the 4 weeks of pay periods before either the 1st of March or the 1st of July. Okay, same goes for business participants. They need to work more than 80 hours in their business in February to declare that they can get that tier 1. Okay, so here's a further information of what you need to do. So obviously, as a BAS agent, we need to be able to calculate the sales that is going to show on our BAS for 2020 in order to compare it to 2019. So that means that we need to be on our game and really make sure that our client sales are up to date and we have those figures as soon as possible so that we can let them know if they actually qualify or they don't qualify. I know that I've at least 3 that need to look at the alternate test because they don't qualify in the basic test. So it's just understanding, you know, what having the most up-to-date information will allow you to tell them sooner if they're eligible or they're not eligible under the basic test. So it's the actual decline in turnover. It's the actual amount. It's not not an estimate this round, which is different to Jobkeeper 1 where we could do a bit of an estimate. But it's an actual decline in turnover for extension 1 and extension 2. So we actually have to have the actual figures for the BAS this quarter. So there's a little bit of a what's different to what we did in Jobkeeper 1 versus what we're doing in Jobkeeper 2. So it's not using a fixed GST turnover for the test, so you'll use the current. It's to work out which supplies you've made in turnover test period. So you must use the accounting basis for your GST reporting. So it's either cash or accruals. So if you lodge your BAS on cash, it's got to be based on cash. If you're basing it on, if you lodge your BAS on accruals, then it's got to be based on accruals. You can't switch and change like we did in JobKeeper 1. Matthew, did you want to say anything further on that area?
It's a good call out, Kelly, because it is a distinct change to JobKeeper 1. So your call out, it's the same as you use on the BAS reporting. The one that comes through then is, but I lodge a BAS annually. So if you lodge annually, you've still got to think about the 3 months ended 30 September. You now need to do that G1 calculation as if you were doing a quarterly BAS. So you do that for September and compare it to the 3 months ended 30 September 19. Exactly the same basis as the BAS, and the ATO will be doing integrity checks based on your BAS reporting. So not-for-profits or others who aren't even GST registered, you don't have to become GST registered. You just use the same legal definition of GST turnover. Calculate the 3 months of what would go in G1. Good call out, Kelly.
Okay, beautiful. Excellent. Yeah, because I know that a lot of us have participants that are not registered for GST, so that's a really good one to clear up as well. Fantastic. So we've got the alternate tests, and I'm still trying to get my head around the alternate tests. I do have the information from the ATO on the spreadsheet, so we'll go through that in just a minute. But what we'll do is what doesn't change. So what we don't need to change, we don't need to do anything with, is to claim for the fortnights in extension 1 or 2. We don't need to re-enroll if they've already enrolled prior to 28th of September. So if they're on JobKeeper 1, then we don't need to re-enroll or do anything in that respect if they're eligible. You don't need to reassess an employee's eligibility. You just have to ask if they're over 20 hours a week or under 20 hours a week, because that will change them between Tier 1 and Tier 2. Okay, and you don't need to meet any of the further eligible business participant rules of holding an ABN and declaring assessable incomes and supplies and all that kind of stuff. So those things don't change. Obviously, the whole program is still open to new participants, providing they meet the eligibility. So of course, we've been here in lockdown in Melbourne for quite some time. And so I'm finding that I'm getting new people jumping on board who are now eligible because of those lockdowns. And I think we'll see that throughout the next probably couple of months until we semi-reopen. Okay, so in here I've also got the partnerships, companies, trusts. There's a whole lot of information in there for you. Again, this is all linked back to the ATO website. I've just basically dragged it all off there and put it into one file, so that you've got it all there. You've got all your examples, and you've also got reference links at the bottom of each spreadsheet, so you can go and have a look yourself. Especially if things change, please go and have a look. Sole traders, again, the links at the bottom, similar eligibility requirements, you know, and tier rates, etc. And just make sure that they were actively engaged in their business for 80 hours or more for the reference period, which for business participants is February. Okay. If they weren't eligible, if they weren't actively engaged, then that's where you kind of think, well, are they actually eligible for Jobkeeper? And that's something you need to have a discussion with your client about. There's a few examples in there which is very helpful. So to make way through what dates they are, and employees are paid on or before. Now that's something I got from the ATM again, is that it's on before these days. Okay, so that's something that I noticed last time was based on fortnights, and this time it's based, it's some of it based on the end of the month, just for this beginning bit. Like I don't think that's right, that'll be the 17th. So, but these ones, we've got until the 31st of October to get everybody up to date, like we did with JobKeeper round 1. We've got until the 31st of October to get everybody up to date for those, for this round of JobKeeper. So we've got a little bit of time to get everything sorted, but still, the quicker the better, obviously.
Kelly, so what they have deliberately allowed is clearly we can't test the 30 September until 30 September happens. And we might have pay days in the 29th, 30th of September or the 1st week, and we won't know whether the employer has definitely utilised this endpoint. So that's why the ATO was allowed till the 31st of October for those 2 fortnights. The rest of them are the fortnights. So you have a slight change in your spreadsheet. We'll have to use the end of the fortnights for those other dates.
Yeah, I'll just change that and that'll be right when I upload it. Beautiful. Alternate test, and this is where I'm confused. I'll be honest, I understand some of it, but understanding, you know, what is the best, like, for example, if we had a business that started, was increasing, how do I put it, had a really good run in the September quarter last year, and then they dropped off a bit, and then, you know, so it's, had a really bad run in September of last year. So they've had a really bad run in September last year. They've really pumped up during the next 2 quarters. And then, of course, we've hit COVID and they've gone back down significantly, but still not enough to push them over that 30% for that September to September quarter comparison. What do we do in those kind of circumstances, Matthew? Can you let me know?
So the ATO are yet to release their rewording of those alternate tests, Kelly.
Okay.
So where you've gone with using exactly the same alternate tests we had for Jobkeeper 1, exactly the same concepts exist for Jobkeeper 2, but clearly we've got to think a little bit differently. It's quarterly thinking, it's actual GST. So where you're going is right. I've been hesitant myself to try to re-describe this just yet, and I know the ATO are about to release this. They need to release a legislative instrument to make it law, and I believe we'll get that within the next 24 hours.
Okay, beautiful. Troy, have you seen anything in the legislation yet about any of this, or have you got a further update?
No, like Matthew's saying, as it gets released, we become aware of it. The alternative tests in completion aren't out as far as anyone can see, like Matthew said. So, we did the first time, we're just going to have to work with what we do have, and scenarios where our clients don't fit right within that, we might have to either wait till the alternate tests come out or actually have a chat with the ATO.
Okay, all right, beautiful. This is just what I've got the website to get updated with at the moment. This is nothing. This is just temporary until we get the full legislation through, and then we'll know more, and I can update it at the stage. So this is just what we have at the moment. Okay, beautiful. Not right. What's changed there? No.
Not a lot, really.
No. Okay.
If they were eligible, it's the same process. It's like, you know, if they weren't eligible for it before, reassessing as we would be doing any month anyway, other than, like Matthew said, it's on the quarter, not the month specifically. No such thing as an eligible business participant in not-for-profits still. It's just employees. The 15% decline turnover threshold still applies. Like you mentioned before about childcare centres and some other specific not-for-profits, but carried off. It's pretty much the same. The gifts thing, the fact that some grants are and some grants aren't. And as far as the NDIS and childcare stuff, there's some differences that's probably more of a specific conversation to be had around those rather than a general kind of conversation like we're having at the moment. Okay.
All right. So I know Matthew's already answered this question on the chat, but it's good to talk about it too. So can a working director on wages change to being an eligible business participant to get on the tier 1 payments, only paying themselves a minimal rate at minimal number of hours?
It's interesting, Kelly, the eligible business participants is the one that's really coming up with novel approaches to Jobkeeper 2. And novel in the right way. We're asking the logical questions about the various business circumstances. And it appears the law has been written quite specifically that if you were registered for Jobkeeper as an employee, you can't now swap to be an eligible business participant. And if you were an eligible business participant with one business that's now ceased, you can't become an eligible business participant for a different business. The law appears to be quite black and white. There is some contention around that, but that's the way it is being interpreted at the moment.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Yeah, people are trying and get through what they can. Really, it's surprising. Okay. Yeah, if you're not registered for GST Angelic, it's you still base it on the 3 months in the the 3 month period of September versus September. So it can be cash or accrual, it doesn't matter because they're not technically registered for GST. I would base it on cash myself and base the 30% on the September last quarter, the September this quarter, just on their sales, even if they're not registered. So.
Yeah, Kelly, the non-registered are allowed to choose which method, but then they have to be consistent. So if they're choosing to use cash for September 2020, they've got to do the September 19 in cash as well. But they're allowed to choose cash or accrual if you're not GST registered.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so they get to choose. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. We're just having a discussion about the checking about the basic test versus the income alternative test. Yeah, so we're still waiting on the alternate test. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Yes, Leanne, I agree. It's tough being a bookkeeper in Melbourne right now. It's tough with anything in Melbourne right now, I think. Do we have any other questions that I'm just going to check again to see if there are any further questions here that we can answer? Please do put them in the chat and we'll answer them as we can. Okay, if a sole trader was getting Jobkeeper 1 through an employer and lost their job, can they do Jobkeeper 2 as an eligible business participant? They lost their job.
Troy, do you want to have a shot at that one?
Thanks, Matthew. Did you play football when you were younger, did you? Look, like you just said, Matthew, it's about, the rules are written about not changing from one to the other, but you would also look at what's the reality of the situation. Like, did they run a business in September quarter of 2019 and run a business in 2020, and may they potentially eligible for declining turnover? But even that being the case, like Matthew just said, you can't switch from one employee to eligible business participant or back. Like, it's change of circumstances is really awkward. This is about, the whole program is based about consistency, and it's based around keeping employees on and engaged in the business, and a reimbursement from the government for that. So significant change in circumstances like that don't fit within the rules of the whole purpose this thing was set up for. So that's, I would be inclined to think no would be the answer. But again, if you want to push hard enough, talk to the ATO and see if there's something in there. But there's nothing written in the rules that we have at the moment where that's likely to happen.
Yeah.
So I could never kick a football, so I never played football, Troy. But hand passing is one of those things that is pretty generic. Yep. But I agree with what you've said. For the eligible business participants, they are not allowing that swap. So that's spot on. Let me draw the distinction though, Kelly, with an employee. Mm-hmm. If an employee was registered with employer number 1 and that employment relationship has ceased, so they've actually terminated their employer, they've been sacked or they've quit, they can go and register with another employer as long as that employment relationship existed as of 1 July. So an employee can potentially not switch, but if one employer has stopped and the employment relationship has ceased, they can become an employee on Jobkeeper with another eligible employer as long as they were employed at 1st July.
Yep.
And as long as they have the necessary paperwork done.
Yes.
Correct.
and
All the
paperwork,
legalities
because you know
covered.
we love that, right?
Yeah, so much.
Matthew,
so much.
I'm not aware that they have necessarily changed any of the nomination forms specifically. It's still, we've got nomination forms there, and there's a
Correct.
process to
Correct.
enrol and to continue to state whether an employee is eligible or not in payment lodgements through STP, etc. Similarly with eligible business participants, I haven't noticed there's been an update to the EBP nomination form for anything other than sole traders either. So just make sure that you use the right forms at the right time if a business does become eligible that wasn't eligible before, ensuring that the paperwork is still done for those nominations.
100%, Troy. The one that will definitely change is the eligible business participant one, because where they're going is the eligible business participant will make a declaration to the ATO about the 80 hours. So they will be making a declaration for themselves. Whereas when an employer is working out the 80 hours for employees, it's the employee and the employer agreeing, and the employer keeps the records on file. Yes, the employer will tell the ATO whether it's tier 1 or tier 2, but you don't as such make a declaration. The employee doesn't have to make a declaration to the ATO. An eligible business participant, there will be a new ATO form. And for most of us, we do it online. It'll be part of that monthly declaration.
Okay.
And that's what is likely to be updated during October, which is why they're giving us to the end of October, I would imagine, Matthew, for us to get familiar with the additional steps in that declaration process. Correct. And for them to have time to update that in their system so we can do it. The
ATO systems are down this weekend, or they're designated to be down this weekend. So the information is that all the new Jobkeeper screens and the new form of monthly declaration, the new fortnights will open up for next month for October, and the new screens where we will prescribe our decline in turnover, they will pre-fill the September 19 numbers, and we will then put in the September 2020 numbers or indicate whether we've used an alternate test. So those screens are going to be implemented this weekend.
Okay. Well, it'll be good to see what they come up with and how it's all structured and what we're doing in that respect before we, like, I know I can, with my business, I can have a look at it and put all my details in. So it'll be good to learn from my experience as to how it's going to work for my clients so that I can do the right thing by them too.
Yep.
Okay, how do we prove the 80 hours worked prior to February for business participants? Well, diary entries, I guess. I think it's up to the business participant to prove that they've done 80 hours if they're ever audited by the ATO. What do you think, Matthew?
Look, I really like where the ATO's guidance has gone here, Kelly, where they've gone with the 80 hours and the alternate tests for the 80 hours is quite generous is an interesting word, liberal's an interesting word. Flexible's probably the better word. Who would say the ATO is generous? They've been quite flexible, and for eligible business participants, as I said, they will get the EBP to make a declaration that they have been working more than 80 hours. Yeah. Then if there's an integrity question, they're going to say, well, how much have you been taking out of the business? Was it more than $1,500 for each 28 days, or was it less than $1,500 for each 28 days? That $1,500, split that down, that's $750 a fortnight. So what they're saying is, did you pay yourself more or less than $750 a fortnight? If you paid yourself more, we're going to accept you're on tier 1, the higher rate, and we'll allow you to get Jobkeeper at the higher rate. So some of it is about the amount of money that is being paid or taken out. Now, we know for sole traders, we don't pay ourselves, and for partners in partnerships, we may not be paying ourselves, even directors who aren't on payroll. So again, it's going to come down to maybe it's diary entries, but it's other declarations that, yes, it's very clear I work 80 hours.
Yeah.
The ones that are going to fall apart is you work full time for another job, you're not going to be able to claim 80 hours in your part-time hobby for selling at markets on the weekend. Are you allowed to sell at markets on a weekend? I don't know what the weekends are anymore in Melbourne.
Oh, I don't know.
Roy, be quiet. I don't want to hear what Croatia's doing at this time of year.
Yeah, shut up, Troy.
Okay, I'll wait then.
Okay. Our next question was, do we think there will be any alternate tests for businesses that remain closed due to stage 4 here in Victoria? Sole traders did really well in July and August when the business was open. Now they must close and they have no income, but we'll be out of JobKeeper. That's an interesting question. They did so well in July and August that they covered the September for last year, and they bounced themselves out.
They'd need to do the alternate test check. So if that business had been growing, the only way I can see 2 out of 3 months, be the trade in 2 out of 3 months in a COVID period, beating 3 months last year, is if that business had been growing a lot. So where you've got that significant growth in business, have a look at the alternate tests for a business that has significantly grown.
Yep.
And then I think you might find the September quarter doesn't grow by the necessary percentage compared to the previous comparable period. So your only hope is look at the alternate tests. Otherwise, I've got to say that 30% decline, it's cold, it's hard, it's mathematical, and it's 30%.
Yep.
And strongly recommend you don't allow any of your businesses to get flexible with their numbers, because the ATO is watching. I don't know whether you'd seen, Kelly and Troy, the media over the last 2 days. 15,000 businesses are being checked right now by the integrity team of the ATO for JobKeeper breaches. So they are seeing it, they're knowing it, and they're going to be more observant for JobKeeper too.
Yeah.
Really look through the decline in turnover tests sections on the ATO website. Like, there is so much information on there, and really go through that. And just the whole thing about the extension is that they are reducing the amounts that are going to be paid out. And they're very, very clear that they don't want a repeat of the mishmash, I would think, from the first time around. These are the rules. That's what's happening. Follow these tests, and that's it. The way that you test current GST turnover, and this is something that come up a lot of times last time as well, is GST turnover is defined as turnover in the GST Act, not whether or not you're registered for GST.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're using a method, be consistent about using that method. Like Matthew said, don't try and get creative and go, well, we're using this one for the last 6 months, but we're going to change and use this one now, because that's going to be pretty clear when you go and lodge not only a BAS but also potentially tax returns at the end of the years as well.
Yeah.
And if there's any question, if we don't have alternate tests that fit a particular situation at the moment, they may release them, but if they don't release them, then you may just have to talk to the ATO again, like we have had through the period up to this point. But yeah, don't go getting creative, but look through all of the declining turnover test information on the ATO website, because there's a lot of information in there.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did see that stood out, that I kind of just wanted to touch on, is that sales for service businesses can include, again, sales that haven't yet been invoiced. So like you look at us and might have work in progress for work that we're doing at the moment, but not actually charging out until October. That could potentially be included in the GST turnover just because it's not actually been charged out yet. So just read up on what gets included and what's specifically excluded from the turnover as well when trying to figure out that hard 30%.
Okay. So look at all aspects.
For sure.
Okay. Okay, are there alternate tests for the tiers if a casual employee didn't work in February or June due to leave or other reasons? They're currently on Jobkeeper.
Yes, definitely. So what the ATO has said, and it's a little bit complicated, but as your spreadsheet indicated, Kelly, you check out for the month before 1st of February, sorry, 1st of March, so the month of February. You look then for when did the last pay cycle finish, and then you do the 28-day calc. Did they work 80 hours in that 28 days? This person started halfway through. So what the alternate test says is look at the next 28 days and did they work 80 hours in their first full sector of 28 days.
Okay.
Similarly, for somebody that might have been on unpaid leave, say in February, or the maternity leave coming back or whatever, then what you do, you were employed, but you weren't employed for the whole period. You also go to the next period. The ATOs also has rules if February or that 28 days that ended in February isn't representative of a normal 28 days, think of the casuals whose workload's all over the place. If that February 28 days isn't representative, go back to the previous 28 days. Is that representative? And if that gets them over the 80 hours, then they get in to tier 1.
Okay, beautiful. Well, that's good. I didn't know about the rolling 28 days, so that's really good to clarify that.
There are good. There are some good examples on the ATO website again about that. There's comment about toil for someone who works in a lawyer's office. There's example of somebody was rostered on for 90 hours but only ended up doing 75 hours. There's regularity. What's their normal monthly? Like Matthew was saying, maternity leaves, parental leaves, what changes with that. There's a lot of information there on the ATO websites. Around this, they've really stepped up the game with clarity and the volume of information, especially around eligibility and alternative tests this time.
Yep, beautiful. Well, I'll go and have a look for an FAQ and include it in the spreadsheet so that at least people have an example and have some further clarity as to what's going on around it all, because that might help with links and everything. Okay, so if they don't qualify for extension 1, but they do qualify for extension 2, they just don't report for extension 1, but then they start reporting for extension 2. Is that how it works, Matthew?
Yes, in short.
Okay.
So if you fall out of JobKeeper 1, so you're not going to get any payments, you're not going to do any top-ups for October, just stop paying the top-ups and don't do a monthly declaration for October. Then if you retest your decline in turnover for the December quarter and you become eligible, then you get back in for January. You'll go on to ATO Online. You'll hit the button that says decline in turnover for October to December. You'll do the numbers. You'll show them you've declined and then start paying the top-ups for January and February and March. So yes, you can re-enter. The big condition is, were you eligible for JobKeeper 1?
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily mean you got payments for JobKeeper 1. If you did, that's pretty clear you were eligible, but you might have been eligible but chose not to enroll enroll, then you can keep going based on the December quarter for next year.
Okay, that's really good to know. Melinda, the only thing that confuses me is that we are assessing on a quarterly basis. If September 19 to September 20 decline is minimal, e.g. 18%, but October falls 45%, can the employer declare again on November 1? I'm going to say no because they're basing it on quarters or use an alternative test.
Correct.
Yep.
So if that 3 months to 30 September is not enough, you're out, but retest the December to think about January to March.
Yep. We've got Dawn. I have one client's part-time employee, took time off. We've already discussed that. So as long as it's a 28-day rolling period prior to, that should be fine. New staff started on the 29th of June. They are on Jobkeeper 1, but Jobkeeper 2, will they go straight to Tier 2? Jade, you might want to clarify that for me, because I'm not sure if they're on...
What that means is that they certainly don't have 80 hours in June. So what you would do is you go to the next 28-day period. So the 28 days of pay cycles in what would be July.
Yep.
Did they work 80 hours or more?
Okay, beautiful. Yes, that makes sense. Okay, Tier 1, Tier 2 over. Yep. Leanne says no markets. Weekends are cancelled. Okay, Victoria, the declaration form for the eligible business participants, is this an actual form that will be available to download, or will we simply tick a box on the portal? So are they updating the forms, or do we just tick a box in the portal to say that they've said yes, 80 hours?
There will be an EBP declaration that is online. So they'll have the declaration. I expect there will be a PDF version as well for records, but it will be structured mostly online. And can I strongly recommend all this stuff we're doing online, the monthly decks, do a screen print or get your own copies of it.
Yep. That's one thing that I do. I have literally 3 big folders, and they have all of my printed forms, from the declarations to the emails with the confirmation of the current employees and the estimates, and the printed JobKeeper forms from the ATO. So it's got everything in the folders under each client. So I've got them all there at a moment's notice. So if I got audited, I can just basically give the ATO, here, this is everything. This is all my P&Ls. This is all my reports. This is everything that I've relied on to do this. So it's really good to keep everything, and I mean everything, all together with the client file, whether it be online in a Dropbox file or whether it be in a physical file. I've got both. So it's a really good idea to do that for our own audit safety. Sue said, is it only BAS agents and tax agents that can lodge the declaration? I'm going to say no. I'm assuming that sole traders and business participants can lodge their own, as they have been, and yes, so I don't see that changing at all.
Yeah, Kelly, where I think that question might come from is the overlap with the Fair Work certificate. So for the Fair Work provisions, some may have heard about the legacy employers. So that's employers that have dropped off JobKeeper. They're called legacy employers for Fair Work, and legacy employers now have a 10% decline test. And that 10% decline test is proven by a certificate, and the certificate can be issued by BAS agents and tax agents. So that's the different area of law. That's about the Fair Work JobKeeper directions, has a 10% test now if you've failed the 30% test. But let's not complicate it.
No.
Please recall, JobKeeper ATO wage subsidy, it's 30% decline.
Yes, 30%. Must be 30%. That's it. Unless you're obviously an NFP, then it's 15, and a bigger employer, it's 50. Okay, so my client does it himself. No, Dawn, you can't do it as you're not a BAS agent, but the client can do it himself. That's fine. Okay, people are just asking for links. I'll let you do that when you've got a chance, Matthew. Up for the EBP declaration.
Yeah, just watch on the ATO website for when that comes out, or it will be very, very obvious when you go in to do their monthly deck. There'll be another step and very obvious spot for you to declare the EBP stuff.
Okay, beautiful. So the 17th of July works 24 hours every single week, but he have advised he's not eligible. Margie says she's got a casual employee started the 17th of July 2019, works 24 hours every single week, but have advice he is not eligible. So if he's working 24 hours a week as a casual from 17th of July 19, because he's not 12-month casual as of the 1st of July 20, that's why he's not eligible. Yep, definitely not eligible. Sorry, Margie. Thanks, Melinda, for the link. I'll just see if there's any other questions here.
Diana raises a good point there, Kelly, about if you fall off Jobkeeper. So Jobkeeper 1 ends, you don't have to go in and tell the ATO that you're off. You don't unenroll, and you don't need to finish your employees. You don't need to use that Jobkeeper finish code. You just stop paying your top up and stop doing the monthly deck.
Yep, beautiful. You just stop declaring, basically. Okay, awesome. Is it once you're in for the quarter, you're in for the full quarter? Yes, Janet. Once you've qualified for the qualified through the September quarter for the October to December, you're in for October to December. And then you re-qualify again in January for that December quarter, which will qualify you for January to March payment. So yes, once you're in for the quarter, you're in. That's it. You only have to qualify once for that quarter. Sorry, Angela's just asked me a question. What do you do for sole traders that gained part-time employment 25 hours a week working in January and then don't have the prior year financials to justify JobKeeper, now working 10 hours minimum per week as a result of COVID? If they're classified as part-time, Angela, I would say that they're eligible for JobKeeper. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. If they're casual, then yeah, I can understand why they're not eligible. But if they started in Jan as a part-time, then they should be eligible for JobKeeper. Isn't that right, Matthew? Sorry?
I would. There's a couple of questions. If it's a sole trader, have they registered as eligible business participant? And if so, as we discussed before, no, out.
Yes, that's right.
Not going to happen.
That's good.
If it's 24 hours a week engaged, like you said, part-time rather than full-time or casual, it meets the 80-hour before 1st of March test, potentially, for those periods. If it was all the way through to 1st of March, if it was casual, then you've got all the casual tests to assess. But it sounds like there's probably a few different tests to look at, but it's still predominantly the basic tests of eligibility.
Yeah.
Just go through one test, and if you come up to one of the tests that particular individual satisfies, then you're good. If you're really going through and it just absolutely doesn't fit with any of the tests at all, that's probably an indicator that it doesn't fit with any of the tests to be eligible. So, it is what it is kind of situation. Yeah. Or look at the alternate tests.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Troy. Tracy, yes, if you don't get onto extension 1 of 2.0, then you can get on extension 2 if you have the resulted turnover.
No, Kelly, not if you're not eligible for JobKeeper 1.
Oh, sorry, and if you're not eligible for JobKeeper 1, then no, you can't come in for the extensions.
So you must have had that decline and got into JobKeeper 1 and met all the other eligibility tests, and then had a decline for December. You can get into extension 2, but you must have been eligible for JobKeeper 1.
And you have to prove that eligibility even if you didn't take the JobKeeper in round 1. Okay.
Correct.
So the word is, because this is the JobKeeper extension.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's extending the eligibility. It's extending the payments that you're entitled to. It's not JobKeeper new eligibility.
Yes.
It's the extension of whether or not you were eligible previously. Just the tests on what amount you get are changing moving forward, and the tier 1, tier 2, and
all the different tiers and everything like that. Yep. Okay. Marianne, it's 30% for SMEs. 30% is the drop for SMEs. The 15% is not for profits, just to clear that up. Any news from the softwares? I have no idea, Anthea. I haven't even looked at that yet, honestly. Troy, have you looked at that? Matthew, do you know what's happening with the softwares, whether they're ready or not?
My turn to punt to Matthew on that one.
Okay.
I can't mark either, Troy. I couldn't kick or mark a football. So we're hearing from the software companies they will all facilitate through the single touch payroll reporting system an ability to inform the ATO of the tiers. So each of the software you'll see will come online either late this week or very early next week. So you'll be able to put the tiers through. Remember, we don't have to rush this by the end of September because the ATO actually don't need to know the tiers until the end of October. So we do have a little bit of time here.
Yep.
But we're hearing from each of the brands of software that the three dominant ones in our space, the four dominant ones in our space we've heard from, will all be enabling the STP system to advise the ATO of the tiers. The good thing we're hearing is the ATO are actually going to give that employee list visibility through ATO Online. So you'll get your list of employees and you will see what tier they're on. So when you go in to do that monthly deck and you're looking at their numbers and you go, they're wrong, you'll be able to look at the employee list and reconcile it back to your software. So finally, we will get that for Jobkeeper too.
Oh, that's fabulous news. Best news I've heard all day. Awesome. So if this has already been asked, so for Jobkeeper on 1.0, do they need to arrange? No, there's no new nomination forms to be filled out for the employees. And then the ones for the business participants is just to prove that they've done their, that they are 80 hours. And that'll be an online thing. It won't necessarily be a form that you fill out. Do we know if the monthly deck is still going to what the actual and estimates when reporting? So I think Matthew's dropped out there for a moment, but I'm assuming that for the monthly decks, we will go, I'd say the actuals and estimates will stay. I don't see that changing. What do you think, Troy?
I think we'll probably find out sometime after the 1st of October when we go to do it next time.
Yeah, that's true. We'll find out on the 1st of November, yeah?
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, look, if it's still there, then we put the numbers in. It maybe it's because it was never an eligibility thing. It was always for the ATO and the Treasury to keep an eye on what was happening in real time, or monthly real time. So it was an assessment to say, do we need to keep doing this thing? So from that perspective, it's likely that it would possibly continue. But like Matthew was saying, the ATO systems are going to be down this weekend, likely. So do everything you need to do before the weekend.
Yes.
Otherwise, on the ATO portal. But yeah, from the 1st of October, we'll see hopefully what the new forms will look like and what the new requirements are and what the new obligations are and what the new checkboxes are and what all the we won't
stuff.
know until they put it up. But like we did last time, as soon as they do put it up, we'll
We'll
be
all
able to
know
go,
about it.
we've got everything except for this little piece. Okay, let's go back and have another look at that. You know, if we're 95% there, then the other 5% may be a little bit annoying, but it won't be completely onerous. So we'll just have to do what we can.
Yep. Sounds like a plan. That's the best we can do. We've just got to wait for them to jump up and go, here's all your tools. There you go. It's always waiting around for them, but that's okay. You know, we've got until the end of October, so we do have time to sort all this out for our employers and ourselves as well, because you know, I know it's coming into bath time as well. So again, we're going to be pretty busy. But
that's the thing is, the September is the end of a BAS quarter, so we've got to do BAS reporting generally by the 28th of October.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, there are BAS extensions and things, and we've got to report all the information that we need to report by the 31st of October. So those dates aren't that different. And we're getting pretty used to, I know a lot of people are probably getting pretty used to doing a lot of this stuff monthly now rather than quarterly as well. So, yeah, it's just, yes, it's an extra step, but it's an extension of what we're already doing. It's not new stuff that we have to do. It's a reassessment of those figures, you know, which for the current and expected turnover, we've got to pull together every month anyway. It's pretty much just reporting what we're already doing and confirming eligibility on an ongoing basis, not starting from scratch again, thankfully, because we wouldn't want to go through March and April again.
Yes, we've been keeping on our clients' sales and making sure that they're keeping, if they're doing their bookkeeping, they're keeping it up to date. And if we're doing it, then we're keeping it up to date on a weekly basis. So we know pretty much by the first week of October whether they qualify or not, and can give them the news. So, you know, we're fortunate in that fact that we've, it is just an extension on what we do. It's just an added thing that we do now, you know, just like the TPARs and end of financial year and all that kind of stuff. It's just an addition to what we do. So I'll just quickly go through any more that we can possibly answer or we already have answered. No, when you finish it, if you finish, you don't have to put in a finish employee code or anything like that into the software. Just stop reporting, stop adding top-ups, and it'll stop by itself at the end of March when we all stop.
And if you're terminating an employee and you're clicking on the final pay button for terminating an employee, they're going to drop off the system anyway, because SDP is saying that
they're no longer there,
eligible for you anyway. Yeah. So yeah, you know, there hasn't been anything on any reporting about dropping out or stopping. It's just a matter of of actually saying that you've dropped out or that you're not eligible anymore. Everything is there. It's just, if you're not reporting, you're not going to get the payment.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than a specific, I'm not eligible anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Matthew's just joining us again, which that's kind of perfect, because we've got a taxi driver question here. This is for taxi drivers. They work 20 plus hours a week in February and have the 30% downturn for the quarter. Do they still have to do 20 hours or more a week to receive the tier 1 payment? No, they just have to be eligible for the 20 hours. They don't actually have to do the 20 hours during the Jobkeeper period. They don't have to prove that they've done the 20 hours. They just have to make sure that they were eligible at that time. Wonderful.
I'm back, Kelly. Sorry.
Wonderful.
The Melbourne storm blew out just about everything in our house a moment ago, so apologies.
Oh, I hope everything's okay now. Excellent. Andy, I thought that the JK extension turnover had to be calculated using the same as the BAS. So if they were different, can we switch now? Okay, so if they report on a cash basis, the eligibility has to be on a cash basis. If they report on an accrual basis, it has to be based on an accrual basis. If they are not registered for GST, they choose the method, cash or accruals, but they need to be consistent and keep it as cash or accruals throughout this entire episode of Jobkeeper, basically. I hope I got that right in a nutshell. So if a business wasn't eligible for Jobkeeper 1 or Jobkeeper 2 extension 1, no, if they were not eligible for Jobkeeper 1, they are not eligible for Jobkeeper extension 2. Correct, they are not. 20 hours to,
so I will call out, Kelly, just in relation to that one. Remember that the September quarter is actually still in the Jobkeeper 1 phase.
Yes.
So if you test for September and you had a 30% decline, that makes you eligible for Jobkeeper 1, even if you weren't in it. So therefore, you're eligible for Jobkeeper 1. That makes you eligible to receive payments from October to December. So doing that test for the September quarter will make you eligible for JobKeeper 2 Extension 1, but then you've got to retest to get into JobKeeper 2 Extension 2.
Yes.
And let's
So
hope
we had that.
Sorry,
we
Troy.
had that question earlier about like a decent July and August, but then September was like significantly, tanked due to lockdowns and stuff. Well, if they're eligible for JobKeeper 1 for the month of September, for the final month, then they're eligible and they can potentially be in. To be able to look at getting it moving forward. So it's just, yes, there's a lot of information, but I'm such a proponent of the KISS principle. Just take it step by step, look at the tests, think about it from a basic level, and if they qualify for this month, then which level do they qualify for moving forward? Would depend upon the quarter or some other criteria, but whether or not they're eligible at all, because Melbourne has shut down again, if they weren't eligible before, can put them into potentially being eligible for moving forward. So one step at a time. Just keep it simple, keep it basic, do the actual tests, do the actual assessments. If they're in, they're in. If they're not, look at alternate tests, and if they don't fit, they probably don't fit.
And they probably don't belong.
I like Troy's call out there, though. You could test the month of September, and the month of September makes you eligible for JobKeeper 1, whether you claim it or not. And that makes you eligible. Therefore, you can think about JobKeeper 2. Good call out, Troy.
Yep, that's a good point. Very good point. Does the reduction in turnover need to be directly related to COVID? No, it can be 30% down from whatever reason. It doesn't necessarily need to be COVID related.
Yeah, don't hang too many hats on that one.
No, I wouldn't. Okay, you also need to satisfy the original decline in turnover test. However, if you were entitled to receive JobKeeper for fortnights before 28th September, the actual turnover, you'll satisfy the test. Yes, okay. We've just discussed that, so that's fine. How does the ATO know that the employee has finished JobKeeper? It's just on the basis that we're not declaring anymore. Or they've been terminated and they'll be terminated by STP, so they'll be notified anyway. So you stop declaring or you finalise the last pay for the employee. Yes, there is a video. This will be replayed, Angela, no problem. Client drops off. If a client drops off JobKeeper due to reporting on cash, due to they got a big job completed, got paid for it a while ago, but they haven't worked due to lockdown, do you think an alternate test will get them in? If not, how would he deal with his employees that have no work but currently get JobKeeper? Will he be able to use Fair Work provisions? Fair Work, I would honestly contact Fair Work directly or use your HR provider when it comes to anything that's related to HR and Fair Work and this whole JobKeeper thing in regards to their employee. But I would look at the alternate test because I've also got a client who they wait for settlement, they get paid, and so generally the settlement is 60, 90 days down the track, and then they get a big lump sum. So that would be where your alternate test would come in, or you could contact the commissioner for a ruling on your specific case. Those would be my go-to areas. I don't think there's anything else that we can do really in that circumstance. Andy, I'm not 100% sure it's right to say you can't join the extension if you weren't eligible for the original one. The ATO website says you also need to have satisfied the original decline in turnover test. However, if you are enrolling in JobKeeper for the first time from 28th of September, if you satisfy the actual decline in turnover test, you will also satisfy the original decline in turnover test.
So that's another way of wording, Kelly, exactly what we talked about before. If you test for the September quarter, that would make you eligible for JobKeeper 1, which is the original test. Therefore, you're eligible for JobKeeper 1. That makes you eligible for JobKeeper 2.
Yes.
So, Andy, I get it. That wording is not the first version of that wording, can I say? I'd seen other versions of it in draft. That's the way they've currently landed it, trying to deal with that overlapping test period, if you like.
Okay, beautiful. The ATO says use either Feb or June for the 80-hour test. Obviously, for new eligible employees, the eligible ones in July, you would use the June test, not the February test. But if you've got someone who's been employed with you since, 12 months prior, as a casual, and you did the 20-hour test, which would you test, either February or June, or is it one or the other, or is it set to February if they were employed before the 1st of March, or is it set to...
Troy, did you want to have a shot? I'm happy to explain it, but I'm happy for you to.
No, you go ahead. You've been a lot more closely aligned with this than I have, Matthew.
So where
I've read
I'm
I get it, but you do it.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Where I'm quite liking the flexibility the ATO are indicating is what they've said is test 1. If you're over 80, you're into tier 1. If you're not, go and test the other one. If you're over 80, then you're into tier 2. If you fail both the February period and the June period, then go and use the alternate tests. They've made it flexible enough to try to get you into tier 1. So literally it is or. Test 1,
or test
you fail, go and test the other one.
Beautiful. Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so Sharon, the tests that you can, hang on, what periods can we retest prior to September 28th for the first time enrolment? It's the September to September, so it's September 2020 versus September 2019, and it's only that month to get you into JobKeeper 1 that you can test. If you want to do it the month to month, or if you do it the quarter to quarter, because you're now qualified for JobKeeper 1, then you can do that as well. So you've got that alternative there. Yep, beautiful. Okay, so that's about it for questions as far as I can tell. This is recorded, so if it doesn't stay in the group, I have recorded it to put on my YouTube channel and share it that way. But it should actually share in the group and stay in the group for you guys to come back to and re-listen to all of the answers that we've been able to give you. So if, Troy, do you have anything further to say? Or Matthew, do you have anything further to say before we wrap this up?
Troy?
No, I like I've said, just test under the tests that we've had, see whether you're eligible or a client is eligible under JobKeeper 1, and then whether or not they can roll through into JobKeeper 2. Be mindful of the new employees that are eligible from the 1st of July and what their tests are. Be mindful of any NDIS or childcare institutions for their changing rules that happened in July, which anyone who works with them is probably going to be aware of already.
Yep.
Anyway, and what isn't not included in grants and turnover. Just test it one step at a time.
Yep. Beautiful, will do. Thank you. And Matthew, any final words?
Look, thanks, Kelly, and thanks for the opportunity to be involved from Institute of Certified Bookkeepers' point of view. Have a look at our website. We've got the JobKeeper 2 implementation kit page open at the moment, so your participants can get in there, have a bit of a look, have a bit of a play for the sort of guidance that's on the table. I'll just call out, we've got a federal budget that is coming down in the not too distant future. It's within the next couple of weeks. I don't know the date off the top of my head. We have a federal budget, and all the talk is that there will be new small business incentives and encouragements and job creation programs brought in. So JobKeeper has had its purpose. I'm actually sit reasonably comfortable with them repositioning JobKeeper.
Mhm.
We're actually pushing government a little bit to think about job creator or job builder programs. And I'm really hoping that comes out of the budget. Thanks, Kelly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I really appreciate your time, Matthew, especially from a fantastic association like ICB. You guys have been there with us all the way through, and we really appreciate all your information. Thank you. And Troy, go and enjoy that Croatian sun and sand and surf and all the cocktails and everything you can enjoy. Enjoy one for me, please. All right, take care, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we'll be in the group, obviously, answering questions as we go and where we can. We hope to see you on the other side of this in a more social environment. All right, take care, everyone. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye.